Dr. Dennie Beach, and the CEO of Go Africa Network and the African Union Expo, LLC.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you for the precision. So we are a few weeks.
Yep.
I mean, from the second edition.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about it.
Okay.
Your state of mind and how is going the preparation right now.
The preparation is going well. We just received the support again for the second year from the Assembly Speaker, New York State Assembly Speaker Hasty. So, and we have the support of the borough presidents, Gail Brewer and Diaz, and Espiat, the future soon-to-be congressman. So it's going pretty well. I mean, we're getting a lot of registrations, a lot more than last year. But I will highlight some of the changes that we have for this year and some explanation as to why we have the changes. We do have the exposition session for vendors that have dry goods, other materials, financial services, healthcare, and the like that they would like to sell or promote during the event. We also have a couple of the agencies, the city agencies, participating as well. So that's one part of the event that takes place autonomously. Go Africa coffee will be distributed to anyone at the venue for free. That's espressos and lattes and regular coffee. As far as the event itself is concerned, there's two contests. One is the startup contest for entrepreneurs and existing businesses. The top prize is $1,000. That is, you're competing with your peers, with a set of judges judging you and your business in comparison to your peers. So who's ever the best that day wins the top prize. And the next prize after that is $250. We also, for the sake of innovation in our community, we realize that there are people who may not have a business but have ideas. We have a separate contest as well that takes place where they're judged separately, where they just have to pitch their idea. And the top prize for that, I believe, is $150. So that's why we're separating the two. So you don't have to have a business and have a business plan and all of this. You can just have an idea that you want to share with the community, and you may win something. The fourth part of it is what we call a business review session. That's for businesses or small businesses that are looking for financing. So we partner with Carver Bank, Capital One, and some of the CDFIs, that's community development financial institutions that are in the community, that will review your business plan, your financials, and if you bring your tax returns 3 years and your audited financials, audited or unaudited, and about 6 months of your bank statements, if you don't have any of that, they can make an assessment. In conjunction with Go Africa Capital, we'll make an assessment. And this is really for businesses that say you have had trouble getting traditional financing. If you can get financing on your own, you could go to Carver Bank or Capital One or any of these institutions right now, and they'll take care of you, correct? This is for someone that may have lacking collateral, but everything else is fine in their business, and that they're looking for alternative financing that we could come up with. So we would look at the person's situation or individual's firm situation, their bylaws, their minutes of the corporation, how they're structured, and in conjunction with accountants and the banks, work out something that could get the individual financed. It's not something we could promise. It's everyone's situation, but I can tell you up front, the ideal candidate is someone that the bank said you're declined, but says you're lacking collateral or equity or cash flow. Those are the scenarios that we're looking for, to the low-hanging fruit, to make sure we pick them up, to make sure these businesses get financing as well.
It's almost the same thing like last year, right? Is there a follow-up?
Yeah, the last year did not have a business review. Last year did not have financing. Last year, there was follow-up last year. So we've made some changes because the changes were essentially you could sit through these seminars and the SBA or other groups basically tell you how to do X. But a lot of people have already sat through those, right? But the bottom line, whether you go to the SBA, the SBDC, somewhere in DC, or whoever, you come back that you can't get qualified for a loan. That's what the business review session is for. That's what it's a separate track in a separate room altogether, independent of the contest. So while the contest is happening in a separate room, confidentially, the banks and others are sitting there looking through your financials to see what we could come up with.
Okay.
Make sense?
Okay, it makes sense. But I'm saying from the first edition.
Yes.
Those people who have participated.
Yeah.
Is there any follow-up?
Yeah,
are there some people who got like financial after the first one?
Yes, because that contest was for Innovate Her. It was specifically for women businesses, no male businesses. Okay, that was the difference last year. That was sponsored by Microsoft and the Women's Business, SBA for Women's Business in DC. So they provided the funding, they provided everything. That contest is no longer happening this year. But our feedback was, where are the things for other businesses, male businesses, etc., in the community that we could do? And also we had done, this extensive best practices for e-commerce, for import-export, and the feedback was to make it more tangible. So more tangible is, we're doing some of the seminars, only about an hour worth, like for e-commerce and etc. We're immediately moving to the contest for about 4 to 5 hours to give a lot of people the chance to pitch their business. But also for 4 to 5 hours is the business review session in the other Studio C that takes place, where we will put a business in queue. So say hypothetically, you could participate in the contest at say 1 o'clock, but at 2 o'clock you have a business review session in another room. So make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The contest, you can only win $1,000 maximum. The business review session, at the end, you may come out with what you were looking for, maybe a $50,000 loan, $25,000 loan, or whatever you were looking for, based on what we could work out with you as the business. To be honest, if you could read the documents, for that to happen through alternative financing, you may have to give up an equity stake in your business in exchange for the capital being extended. That's just the reality. Otherwise, if you qualify for traditional financing and you didn't have to give up stake, the banks will gladly take you. Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's where we're trying to change the dynamic, because everyone can go around the wagon over and over again and no one gets financed. No one gets ahead. The person actually sinks. So we're saying, if you're doing the right things and you still are not getting financing, it's a partnership of the willing. We will work with you, restructure yourself to give you the financing somewhere in the, honestly, between the 60 to 120 days. Why does it take so long? Because we have to do our due diligence to make sure that what you're presenting is correct.
That makes sense.
It's no different than in the traditional financing. Is that if you haven't had your books audited, we would now have to step in, if we decide if it's good to pursue, to audit you. That doesn't change, because at the end you have to be doing the fundamentals, because if financing is extended to you, everyone wants to be sure that we get paid back. Yeah, exactly. Okay, that no one wants to lose here. So that's why it's a partnership of the willing. And also, since we're talking and we're going to be blunt during the session, so I'll be blunt in the video, if you're looking for financing to get a new car, to pay off your old debt, the business review session is not for you, because we will eventually figure that all out anyway. So I'm just being transparent that if we find out that you're deep in debt, it's not going to, unless there are extenuating circumstances that we see it's worth the risk. Okay, that it's worth the risk. And honestly, if it's worth that much of a risk, you will have to give up I would say, a substantial amount of equity in exchange for someone assuming the risk. Nothing's free. If someone's taking the risk, then you should be willing to give up equity. It's very tangible. So the issue is we're only in the business review session, to be really transparent, only looking to fund between, I would say, on the high side 7 and on the low side 3, meaning you, of all the businesses that come through, we don't know what we'll see. The banks don't know, we don't know. So if someone signs up for the business review session, the best that you could do as a candidate is to submit your tax returns, your bank statements in advance so that the banks have a chance to go through the numbers and then work with you. It's the best use of your time. If you don't and you bring it, yeah, you just kind of, they'll have to get back to you.
Subscribe for this.
For the contest and everything else, we're looking at about, right now, about 30, okay, which is pretty high for such a short, but we know that half the people don't show up. So we just keep registering people, and to honestly participate in the contest, you should see it online. To make sure that you slot it correctly, you have to be there at 10 o'clock. No exceptions, because this is not a reality show where you show up at the last minute. It's not fair to people who are in the contest for you to come later and potentially win at 3 o'clock when you could have been there at 10. Also, it's not fair for the business review. We have to be able to slot you in categories in advance so that the banks have time to spend with everyone. That makes sense, right?
Yeah,
okay, so that's why the time point of 10 o'clock, so that we start on time, we finish on time, and etc.
Okay, 2015, the winner of 2015 contest.
Yeah. When she won, this is how the Innovate Her contest was run. We picked a winner, and the person was sent to DC, sort of like American Idol or something, where you win locally, but you go for the national. And the national prizes were...
Because she has been able to fund financial for her.
Yeah.
I read the news about it. She has $500,000.
That's right. That's right.
And I said, wow.
But the reason why she won and why she continued is that we set the bar extremely high to even participate, so that whoever we selected as a winner could win in the national contest. So we changed the rules to make it that you had to have a business plan, you had to have X, you have to have Y, so that you were real, so that when you went, you would get you'll have your act together. The SBA could help with, which they obviously did, and that's what true vetting is about. Is that if someone vets your business and they can see your cash flow and they can see things, then people know how to structure a loan for you. If you don't disclose that, then there's no way for someone to help you. So I know there's some apprehension in the African diaspora community, the Caribbean community, the African American community, as to, okay, why you need to see my financials to invest in me? Well, and why do you need to see X to do this for me? That's because that's how business is done. It's called risk. And my favorite joke for people is, if you you don't want to do that, then I do know where they're writing loans where you don't have to give them an equity stake, but you don't even have to pay the loan back. Okay. Where they're doing that is in hell. Okay. But you understand is that people, if you believe, and I think the United States has done too many reality shows, like the Shark Tank. And the reality is that without that disclosure, the banks and anyone else looking at your numbers can't help you from marketing to risk or etc. I'll give an example. If you take a restaurant, if you take a normal restaurant, particularly an African restaurant, and this is not singling out Africans, you can say Caribbean, African American, the same. The common mistake they make is that with good intention, they're giving the portions too large, too high, that they're not charging enough for the consumables, for the meat that they pay. They made a nice dish, but they're maybe losing $2 on every dish, okay? That someone walking you through that analysis could easily see in your numbers that your sales are short, or you have a lot of sales, but you don't have enough profit. So the issue is there. Someone could give you some advice to adjust your menu, and you could take that.
So this is like a school, right?
Yes.
It's like a big school where people come to learn something.
It's to one, the business, during the business review, they're going to give you free advice as to what you could do, okay? And then even if we even if we make an offer or don't make an offer, you can take that advice and it may be more valuable for you than the loan itself. Because I try to tell, this is what I tell someone. Say, for example, you say you need $50,000 in capital, okay? Does your business justify the cash flow to pay the principal plus the interest of $50,000 on a 5-year loan? Roughly doing the math on $50,000, you have to assume that that payment is something like $800 a month, okay? Do you have $800 a month extra to pay off this loan? Otherwise, you're sinking in the hole, okay? And you're paying it, but you're struggling. Yeah, exactly. So sometimes less is more. So is there things you could cut and make yourself more efficient? Do you need this expensive phone system? Do you need this expensive office? Could you change some of your hidden administrative costs that could be just for prestige but doesn't really give you any value? Those are things that we could recommend by going through that. And also, if you don't have an accountant, we could recommend an accountant. Accountants, people hate them, but accountants tell you what's wrong. That little $200 or $300 a month you're spending, the accountant in a very dry way is telling you what to do. An example would be Tony Braxton, MC Hammer. Okay, the accountants were telling him he was spending too much money. And so the accountants could lose their licenses. They give you bad advice, okay, which is not generally known. Okay, when I say, okay, for example, let's just take, like you mentioned the lady that got all the money for the stores and everything. Okay, I can tell you without knowing her inner numbers, I guarantee you her financials were audited, because no bank will extend otherwise. Because you could be the best bookkeeper, okay, great. And the bank is going to say, have an accountant do that. Because it's like a second set of eyes. They don't believe you, but they'll believe what the accountant said. Okay, you get it?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so the accountant validates you. And that's what I think a lot of people in our community don't get. An accountant is not a bookkeeper. Accountant is an accountant. A bookkeeper sits below an accountant and does your books. Okay. An accountant audits and validates that it is correct. Okay. And the banks, with the transparency, looking at your bank statements, will validate that anyway. Like, did your uncle give you a mysterious loan that disappeared? They'll see that. That's what the bank statements are needed for. So, to be honest, it's not, if someone comes in thinking they're going to pull the wool over someone's eyes, I'm here to tell you it's never going to happen. It doesn't happen these days. It's just too much disclosure that the banks now ask for. It stops that.
Okay. And now, what is one advice you want to give to contestants and all those people who come in for the event?
Be prepared.
Okay.
Be prepared. Bring people that may support you.
That counts. Too, right?
That counts. Script yourself. Be prepared to answer the judge's questions. I think you were there last year, and they could be very critical if you don't answer the question. You know, someone's going to say you're going to get called out, and so you don't want that to happen. So I think that if you're there early, like I would say to someone, be there like between 9 and 10, you will learn a lot. If you're looking to learn, the people will be there for you to ask questions. You can ask us questions, you can ask me questions, and it's not to give you an instantaneous solution or to solve your problem. It's to really to guide you. And my point of giving someone advice works in this way.
Thank you. One last word about the coffee. After the coffee, your coffee Go Africa tastes really good.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about this coffee.
Okay.
In one word.
In one word, or just a couple of sentences?
Yeah, a couple
We started the coffee of Gilroy Simpson, he's the senior operating officer of Go Africa. He came up with the idea to have Jamaican coffee or Caribbean coffee. And and this is an example of dual investigation. During our analysis, there's not enough coffee in the Caribbean to get what we were looking for.
Wow.
So we went through some cycles, and then with Lassini Kone came up with the concept for Go Africa Coffee, in the sense that we have been working with a lot of the Council Generals of Africa, and it was a sense that Africa needs to take control of its commodity. And on the demand side, so Go Africa Coffee satisfies demand, which in turn will lead us to supply.
Okay.
So by satisfying demand, if you had a plant in Africa making something, you can guarantee a market. You see, it's the chicken and the egg.
Yeah.
A lot of times we build a plant in Africa with good intentions, but we don't control the market. So since we don't control the market, we don't control the output. So the plant fails. So our goal with Go Africa Coffee in the long term is to work ourselves backward in the supply chain to work with the sources, so that Africa gets recognition of its product. If you look at like chocolate or something, they'll just put, Godiva will put chocolate up. It'll never say it's from Cote d'Ivoire, it'll never say it's from anywhere.
Yep.
Okay. The point is to help Africa get recognition for the commodities that it produces, and for us helping us. That's essentially the message of Go Africa and the African Union Expo, is that if we're not helping us, then who else will? Next month on the 15th.
November 15th.
Yeah, at 10 a.m., show up at 10 a.m. If you sign up online, we'll already have you registered. If you show up at 10, we will register you then. If you're not registered, it'll be because you were late and showed up at 11 or something. So, but you could participate and sit in the audience. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, you're welcome.